Audio check. One, two, three. Three, two, one. Check, check, check. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be with you all. We're coming to live for the NIA Thursday night Fireside chat, live from my NIA Community Center and Masjid here in Newark, New Jersey. With me is our regular host, our regular guest, I should say, Brother Baker Asaf. My name is Nair Latif. Today we have another one of those interesting discussions that we thank you for joining us with. The topic today is signs of Allah, recognizing and reacting. So without much ado, we'll kick off our discussion this evening and start off by talking about why are we even talking about the signs of Allah, and what are signs of Allah, and why is it important for have that discussion around signs of Allah?
Well, it's a very important discussion because one of the things that we recognize is that as Muslims we have a purpose in life. Other people, they make their own purpose, so to speak, right? They don't really have a defined goal of what they're seeking from life. Some people might want wealth, some people want fame, some people want to just live something very simple, mellow in a neighborhood. But as Muslims, when you're consciously practicing our religion, we make a conscious choice from what our ultimate goal in life is. And that's to worship Allah Azza wa Jal and to do what He asks us to do and to avoid what He asks us to avoid. The reason that signs are so important, and signs come in different ways, right? So one of the things you can look at, and the foundation of this understanding is one of the most famous hadiths we have from Abdullah bin Umar, radiallahu anhu. He said that the Prophet ﷺ said to be in this world like a traveler, and he said, why is that important? Because he said that a person, and the Rasul said that if a person is alive in the evening, he shouldn't think he's guaranteed the morning. And if he's alive in the morning, he shouldn't think he's guaranteed in the evening. And he said, and yet, look at what he says after. He says, and yet take advantage of your health before your sickness, and take advantage of your life before death. So he's still telling you there's this idea that you shouldn't think that this is the ultimate settlement. And if you think in that analogy, the Prophet ﷺ told us, a traveler, what does a traveler take on a trip? He doesn't take his entire belongings. He takes something efficient, right?
Yeah, things he needs on the trip.
Yeah, and you take the car for the long run, the best mileage, because you're trying to get to your destination safely. And now, once you understand this analogy, you'll understand the signs. If you were going to take a road trip from Jersey to, it's on my bucket list, but to California one day, right?
Yeah.
Well, as you're going through, you look for signs to guide you to your trip, to your end journey. And for us as Muslims, when we're going through this journey of life, Allah just sends us certain signs. And the something very interesting when we were studying a similar topic on adab and akhlaq with Sister Ustada Yasmin Mujahid, it was beautiful. She said, when you see a sign of Allah, she said, you don't just stop and stare at it. Right? What you're supposed to do is, as if you were a traveler, it tells you, the exit's coming up in 2 miles. So you prepare. You still go. You don't pull over and it says, exit's coming up in 2 miles, and you ponder. You're supposed to continue on your path. And so all of these different sides are supposed to guide us. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was explaining the verse in Surah Al-An'am, he drew a line through the sand and he said, life is like this, that Allah's Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path. He said a person goes through life like this, and as they're going through life, he drew other paths off of it. He said they'll be derailed by the shaitan, that he'll take them through different ways. So why should we follow these signs? Is because it'll keep us on the straight path. Not all signs are bad signs. Some signs are warnings. Some signs are good signs that, hey, maybe you're on the right path. And that's why, ultimately, as a Muslim, it will allow you that overall understanding of why they're important to us. And the last part is that Allah actually said it is one of the traits of the muttaqun, the people who have taqwa on Allah. He said, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ in Surah Al-Baqarah. He said those people who have the belief of the unseen, that there is a higher power, there is a creator, and He's showing us these things as you're going through life. Something good might have happened to you, something bad. How did you react? So these signs are supposed to guide you.
But how do you recognize those signs? So because we're traversing every day in our daily lives, different things are happening around us. You're driving on the road and right in front of you, you see an accident.
Yeah.
And that was the car in front of you, or the sun is beautiful in the morning, you're driving. Like, how do you kind of recognize signs, and what is good sign and what is bad sign?
This is an interesting question because even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Hadith of Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam, he asked a similar question. He said, Ya Rasulullah, he said, I recently left Jahiliyyah and Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me with the religion of Islam. He said, but there are still some men who go and seek soothsayers. Where are they getting their signs from? From fortune tellers and horoscopes. And right today you pull up the magazine and if you're born in March, you're this. And right? And there's a funny study about that, by the way, that a lot of people don't recognize. That they just say the most general thing in those horoscopes that will apply to like 90% of the masses, and it'll be this eye-opening, oh my God, that's so me, right? It's a very funny study. And so I remember at my alma mater, NJIT, they used to do like trolls of horoscopes. Like if you opened it up, they're like, yo, your pizza's gonna have extra cheese on it today. Like literally they make a joke out of the entire thing. But then he continued, and the Rasul said, don't go to them. He said he forbade us from seeking signs that way. Right? And even in one narration, he said that your prayers will not be accepted for 40 days if you actually go to those kind of things. So if you just for fun wanted to open up the horoscope and say, hey, I wonder what it says about me today, you just invalidated your prayer. That doesn't mean you don't have to pray. Mm-hmm. It's just that you will not get the reward for praying those 40 prayers, 40 days of prayers. That's a scary thing. Then he said, Ya Rasulullah, he said, some people, they still seek omens. They still seek omens. And the Rasul said that's all in their mind. He said it's all in their mind. It's all from their own thinking. He said, and do not let that thinking prevent you from doing something you were intended to do. So for example, I'll never forget this. We were sitting down and we were studying fiqh of marriage. And there was a sister who she said, Sheikh, she wrote it on a note card, I don't know what she was. And she said, I'm thinking of saying no to a brother who proposed to me, and I think it is from one of the signs of Allah. Okay, well, where's this going, right? So she said, I prayed Salat Istikhara. This is how we're supposed to seek out the ultimate guidance of Allah. You do istishara, which is what we call counseling. You counsel the people around you, right? You're seeking a decision. And the Sahaba said, we were taught to pray istikhara for everything. Unfortunately, this is like a prayer of marriage today. We don't do it for switching jobs. We don't do it for buying a car. We don't do it for, installing a smart home. Just all these sort of things. And the Sahaba said we were taught to do it for everything, right? And so he said, okay, I don't understand why. And she writes in the note, she said, because I prayed istikhara last night, and I went to sleep, and when I woke up, it was just a storm, and it was rain, and it was wind, and I said, oh my God.
That means no.
Right? This must
that
mean
means
no.
That can't mean yes.
It can't mean yes.
Yeah, right.
And you know what we know? What we know in our religion, Islamically, it is absolutely unacceptable to believe in bad omens. Yeah. We can't. Yeah. We can only believe in positive omens. Okay. And this is a beautiful thing for us as Muslims, an underlying principle, that the Rasul is teaching us that we should always be optimistic. We should always be thinking in a positive light. We should never be thinking like, I'll never forget this. There was a brother who, when, I joked around with him a little bit, only because it was a little silly. He says, I was on my way to the masjid, and every single traffic light was red. I never hit every traffic light red. That must mean Allah is preventing me from praying. So you look at this guy, and then I didn't say anything. So the next day I saw him, I said, Muhammad, how are the traffic lights today? He goes, see, now you're just making fun of me. I said, well, I want to know how many green was it and how many red. That must mean the percentage of if you were good or bad. And no. This is, right?
what is, like, if you look at today's, in our environment, if the person who's listening to this thing, what are some of the signs today that is in front of us that we see that we kind of go, we should, because the topic today is recognizing and reacting.
Yep.
So what do we should be recognizing today? And how should we react to those things? Give me a couple of those.
Yeah, so the number one thing to recognize is anything, because Allah said in Surah Al-Baqarah, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. So because these signs are of the unseen, they have to be something that we're told about. So some of the stuff, for example, some of the signs that are around us apply to us personally. Sometimes they apply to the ummah in general, our religion, our community, and sometimes they apply to the world and the masses. Something like on an individual level. Rasul said that one of the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal, before the hour even comes, is that people will not care whether their income is lawful or unlawful. They won't. And I'll tell you, it shocked me beyond belief that I was at a wake, okay, just recently, and there were brothers boasting about how they were doing in the stock market. And one of them said, you know which one I did really crazy was? DraftKings. And I paused for a second in the air. Number one, we're in a wake, let alone, this is bad timing. And then the other kid is like, no, you know which one I did well at? No.
What?
He said Budweiser.
Okay.
Like, look, here's the funny part, right? And this is my take, right? Okay, I'm trying to, as a Muslim, I'm not saying anything, and I'm not judging, but you always try to find those excuses, 70 excuses for your Muslim love. You might say, okay, maybe he really doesn't know DraftKings is gambling. Right. Somebody ought to tell him. But Budweiser's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's openly at a wake, let alone saying, well, oh, you know what I made a killing on was Budweiser. And I just was just like, I looked at my cousin and I said, did he just say Budweiser? And he said, yeah. I said, I heard the same thing. And I was shocked. And it just goes to show you that it's just careless. They don't care. Whether they made it in a halal way, whether they made it in a haram way, they just made money. And at the end of the day, we're taught that way. And so you have to ask yourself, here's a sign. How much do we care about our income? And for us, to a certain extent, there might be some question marks for all of us individually. And we have to take a step back and say, am I failing this or not? Because this is one of the eye-opening ones, right? Another one, on a personal level. Where do we seek our ilm from? Where do we get our Islamic knowledge from? If I was to tell you I need you to qualify to perform open heart surgery on a group of individuals, you would need to go through medical school, your residency, you would certify you by those, experience, and then you would even still be looked after, under supervision doing the surgery. You wouldn't go to Google and Google how to do open heart surgery. You just wouldn't. And I don't know anyone who would trust a person doing that. But unfortunately, the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, the hour will not come. One of the signs that we should be looking out for is that people will start seeking knowledge from the unqualified. Do you know how many people argue with the different imams of the masajid about something they Googled online?
I bet a lot.
Right? And we see it all the time. In a discussion with even our own shuyukh when they're talking and they're giving a lecture and somebody raises their hand, oh, well, this must not be the modern fatwa. Well, this guy dedicated his life, okay? I'm not saying he's the ultimate being. Nobody's the prophet here. Yeah. But, and this is almost like what the hadith of Muawiyah ibn Hakim, the end of it, the Prophet ﷺ, Muawiyah asked him, he said, there's even some people who consult by each other by drawing lines in the sand. Their own way of doing their thing. Yeah, it's a silly way, but it might not be. The Rasul ﷺ said, there used to be a prophet who drew lines in the sand. He said, and this was one of his miracles, and this prophet, in another riwayah, was the prophet Idris. He said, whoever can draw the lines like he drew them, then he's right. That knowledge is long gone, and it was a miracle of Idris. You don't have it. Yeah. And so today, unfortunately, there is a practice of people who are just taking all of their knowledge in a method that doesn't make sense. And they're passing that on to other people. The Prophet ﷺ told us, he said,
so people see something, they read about it,
and they don't care.
You see today, where people read something, they Google it, they cut and paste it, and then they post it on Twitter as a reaction to a specific Islamic issue. I'm not on Twitter, but
I see it all the time, and it's a shame. And sometimes it's our own Muslim people who are the culprits, because they took a narration that suits their day or their need for the time being, and they post it on Twitter, and they're saying, don't judge me, don't judge my iman, it's in here, and all this weird stuff, and that's where you're getting. And unfortunately, that's the incorrect definition of iman. Iman is part of you saying the shahada is also an action that comes from that shahada. I don't just say, and it's in here, don't judge. We're not judging you. But what Allah taught us is we look at an individual about what is apparent. We don't judge the intention. We don't judge what is inside of a person's heart. And we look at all of these different signs and how are we as individuals reacting towards them. Now, alhamdulillah, you're starting to see us, I believe, there's some khair because I see us moving in a better direction. The fact that we have people asking about signs, like, am I doing something right or wrong, shows that they're not heedless. Versus some people are just like, well, okay, it's a sign. Ooh, what do you do? Big deal, right? And then some people want to know about which stocks am I allowed to, which are not, and then it's not enough for just which stock. Why? That's the part where I like. When I see the Muslim Ummah starting to awaken in us as a community, is we ask why, not for the sake of argument, but for the sake of true understanding. Because if I told you, yeah, sure, a particular stock is on a hold right now because of the amount of cash they have, or just some random example, you now understand how to apply those principles to other ones. You don't come to me or my teacher or whoever every single stock, right? And that's one of the foundations.
Yeah.
Right?
How about natural disasters? People assign natural disasters as signs for punishment. So a big earthquake or the fires in California.
Yeah.
Or people will say the tsunami in Thailand was because of lewdness and whatever.
Right.
Or we get heavy rains or massive snow. Are those signs that we should assign specifically, or are they just
Sign.
things?
So one of the things we do know is that is one of the signs of the hours, that these disasters will occur more frequently and at a larger scale. So we're going to see them more and more. What we come back and say is that as a result of us doing something wrong or not. That's something we say, Allahu Alam. Not every sign is a bad sign. Some of them are. Some of them are not. Some of them are just signs, like one of the things like natural disasters. The Prophet ﷺ told us. He didn't say why, but certain things he did. Like, for example, when he said the hour will not come until someone who is called al-Luqa' will be the leader amongst you. Yani, someone who's popular amongst you. What does al-Luqa' mean? That means the lowly son of a lowly, meaning a person who has no success. They didn't try to be successful. They didn't work hard. They don't come from any, honorable family lineage or anything like that, but they'll be popular. And many of the scholars said that's around us today, and it's reality TV. We're so entrenched and obsessed with other people's lives and social media. You look at a person like, what's that girl's name? Snooki from the Jersey Shore. How on earth does she become this wealthy? And it's just the fact that no matter where she goes in the United States, everybody would know this individual. And it's a shame because the popularity she wasn't successful in any reason. She didn't try hard. She literally went to the Jersey Shore bar. She had a few fights, cursed up a storm, and got drunk a few times. Okay, so then what? But the Prophet said, look at what's going on in the society around you that you guys venerate these people. You think she'd be popular if nobody clicked on her stuff? If no one cared? But this is warning for us that we're starting to pay attention to stuff that is of useless information, right? Or useless value to us. But other things where the Prophet said that the hour will not pass, a sign of the day of judgment, will be that you start decorating your homes like fine garments. Colored in fine garments. I mean, we're going to have some beautiful, extravagant homes. You see some of these HGTV homes, man. They're just like picturesque. You want to
I watch that show too.
Right?
Yeah,
that's my channel.
Yeah.
My wife knows that. But you see,
that's Kareem's channel.
You too? See, this is a good channel.
He makes me watch that show because I don't have the remote.
It's good, man. Especially those construction ones. It's real cool. But the point is, right, is that a bad sign? It's not a bad sign. It's just a sign. And so it should tell you the following. How Muslims should react to them is that, number one, if you see that there's a negative connotation to it, first of all, and the scholar said this, you, in assuming that there is a negative connotation, is incorrect. You should ask, is this a narration of a negative connotation or not? Right? So that's the first thing we have to see. Is there a negative connotation? If there's not, then we look at it. If it's happening in our time, that should set us on the straight path. That means we're heading towards our destination. That means the Rasul ﷺ is telling us, Allah is warning us that, hey, remember, you're not living on this earth forever, right? Recognize that this comes to an end, and you should get closer to Allah. All of these signs at the end of the day should show you, like the natural disasters, the earthquakes, the firestorms, and all this other stuff, the tornadoes, and you look at this stuff and you say, look at the power of Allah. And then is it wrong to say, well, it's because of the earth warming up and not warming up? We're not saying there's a causal effect to it. However, what we should recognize is the ultimate might of Allah. Unfortunately, there are people around us that try to mitigate that. They say, yeah, this is all Allah's doing. But, there's the but that comes. And there's the underlying, the amount of emissions and the amount of cows we're eating, and it's really the cows, and then you get all this stuff. You just took away from the goal of the hadith, where it's Allah's, a natural disaster where that fire's burning millions and millions of acres of land. You could come back and say, Allahu Akbar. to say, look at the power of Allah, we're just like this and we can be destroyed like that. Versus, well, yeah, well, this could have been prevented if we burned 6,000 acres this way and created some. Okay, yes, that's ilm, but never take away from what's going on around you so that you can react in a positive way and get closer to Allah.
Thanks. I think we have a question from the chat.
Yeah, so we just spoke about negative signs. So a question came across that said, are there any clear or specific signs for people to know that Allah is pleased with them?
So there's some of the scholars said that there's a good feeling based on the amount of actions you're doing. So they said, if a person, and this goes to show you a very underlying principle. Some of the scholars said, does a person earn their wealth or does it just come to them as just a favor from Allah? And even two great scholars debated this, right? Imam Malik, he said no. He said Allah favors individuals and sometimes it comes to them. So you shouldn't look at these things as, oh, Allah loves me, right? It just comes. Ash-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he said no, you have to work hard and you have to gain these kind of things and then you see the benefits of that. And so Ash-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he wanted to prove to his teacher, because Imam Malik is the teacher of Imam Ash-Shafi'i, he said he invited him over for dinner. And when he invited him over for dinner, he said, how did you like your dinner, Imam Malik? He said, it was amazing, Jazakallah khair, make dua for him. He said, you see, he said, I worked hard. He said, I had to go, I had to slaughter this, I had to put this, we made this, so that we could provide all of this dinner. So there's a reaction of something we did. He's trying to show him, you see how the hikmah. So Imam Malik said, and I did nothing, I just showed up.
And I got dinner. I'm blessed.
Yeah. And what we understand is that they're both correct. That some people, Allah gives them, and Allah says, so some people that don't question Allah, Allah has a hikmah why He gives certain people. And for other people, they have to work hard. But as the underlying principle for a Muslim is that you'll understand that good deeds lead to more good deeds. Like, I'll give you an example. One of our teachers said, and we took a class in, I think one of the tafsir classes, we were studying Ulum al-Quran, and he said everybody is to read, it was a 2-weekend class, so Saturday, Sunday, and then you come back the following week. He said everybody's to read one verse of the Quran, just one verse of the Quran every day from now until next Saturday. We come back and we all read our one verse. So he said, how many of you read one verse and stopped? You know, not a single person raised their hand. Why? Because when you do something good, Allah pushes you to keep on doing more good. And that's why
you feel bad opening up.
You're right, on one verse, I'm already here.
It's really bad if you one verse just read the one.
Qul huwallahu ahad. Alhamdulillah. But to show you that good deeds lead to more good deeds. And that's how, as a Muslim, I never want you to have this fictitious belief, because there are some mystic type of beliefs in the religion, in some individual groups in our religion, that believe that you can see the love of Allah on people, that Allah loves this person because ... And that is one of the worst things you can say, because Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, he said that any individual who says that this person has taqwa and Allah has lied, فَقَدْ كَذَبَ, is a liar. You don't know any individual's relationship with Allah, but you, yourself, you know that you're getting closer and closer to Allah. The more you push yourself, I want to make that very clear, you push yourself to do good deeds. And then you'll taste the sweetness of faith where you'll just love doing them.
Yeah.
But it takes the push initially. It takes the push to get up at 25-degree weather or -degree weather with the windshield and go to Salat al-Fajr in the masjid. It takes a push to fast Mondays and Thursdays. It takes a push to give sadaqah every single day. You push yourself. And then, the moment you didn't do that, you feel like you did something wrong. You thought, oh my God, I didn't give sadaqah today. You didn't sin. But because you're so used to doing something good and helping other people, that's how you see yourself continue getting close to Allah. And then the last part, the Prophet ﷺ told us, and again, we take all of our advice from Allah, from the Quran, and from the Sunnah of the Prophet. We don't take it from dreams of shuyukh and weird things that I see online, and it's very weird that's going on. And again, we will seek knowledge from the unqualified. Just on a side note, I'll never forget this. I was in Hajj, my first Hajj, and I was sitting down, and I was among the group of individuals. I'm not going to name them. I don't like offending anyone, but one person, he came to me, he says, brother, he said, did you read Surah Al-Kahf 100 times this week? I looked at him and I said, 100 times? I said, no, I forgot about my one time in it. And he said, no, it's 100 so that you can reach the level. I said, well, number one, where'd you get the 100 from? And number two, what level? And I'm not going to get into the details of the conversation. He said, this great imam, he had the dream. And he said, the Prophet said he will be most pleased with the one and he will earn his shafa'ah on the Day of Judgment, his intercession on the Day of Judgment. If you read Surah Al-Kahf 100 times, Allah sent him the sign in his dream. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. I said, that's weird. I said, where's this guy? Because I got to talk to him. He said, why? I said, I had a dream too. He said, what? What are you talking about? I said, I had a dream. The Prophet said, I'm canceling that dream. So we should just go back to one. He looked at me and says, oh, brother, you're making fun of this now. I said, no. I said, I had a dream. He canceled it. I said, so that dream doesn't count anymore. I said, so what do we do? Is it my dream that works or is it his dream? I said, this is not how we take our religion. I said, if it was based on people's dreams and you conjure this thing up, that's not how our religion is taken. You will know yourself by following what Allah said and steering clear about what Allah prohibited. And also you'll be like the Sahaba. The Sahaba treated the makruhat, which is the abominable things in our religion, that could earn Allah's punishment, but might not, right? Because it's a gray area. It's something called makruh, something that's abominable. It's abomination. You want to stay away from it. The Sahaba treated that as haram because they just were so afraid of entering haram. They wanted a safe zone, a barrier. So they said, okay, if I don't even come next to the question mark stuff, I don't have to jump over to the other side.
Yep.
And that's the indicator where, it allows you to get closer to Allah. Every individual knows themselves. I want to make this very clear for anybody who's listening, anybody who asks the question. Don't think that you can sit with an imam and he's going to fix you. Allah told you very clearly in the Quran that if you ask about him, he is very close. Allah will answer your dua. Sit, make dua, pray your rak'at in your sujood, just speak to Allah in any language that you want, especially if it's a non-fard salat. If it's the, extra prayers, the nafil prayers, in your sujood, any language. And that's where you really open up, and that's where you'll find yourself being able to get close to Allah and encourage yourself to do better.
Question?
Another one? Yeah. So someone asked, is COVID-19 a sign of the end of time?
Good question.
Yeah,
COVID-19 is a big
it's funny.
sign.
One of my teachers actually said, yes, it is. It is. And it's one of the things that we have to recognize, that how Allah can collapse a market just like that. We think everything's gold, everything's grand, too big to fail mentality, right? Everybody gets bailed out, but in all honesty, a virus which we can't even see has set us back years and put us all on hold. We don't even see it, right? It's not even like this attack where we can't even see it. And one of my teachers, Sheikh Hatem, we were just talking about this, Sheikh Hatem Hajj last week, he said this virus is so dangerous because it's confusing. He says, how is it, for example, a man who's in his 80s lives from COVID, President Trump, for example,
Nice,
right? Heading there, and then a 25 or a 30-year-old will die. He said, of course, this is hikmah from Allah, but the point is that it's just so all over the place. And then somebody might say, well, this guy must have deserved to die. First of all, pump the brakes. Never say that statement. That's one of the question marks that you should never believe anyone deserves to die. This is not your role. Don't play the role of God. This is a trick from shaitan. But you come back, at the end of the day, if Trump becomes Muslim, what are you going to say now? Oh, everybody's just going to be looking around. What just happened? The fact that Allah allows someone to keep breathing, Allah is still giving them a chance. And for us, we don't write anyone off. Period. If they're still alive, they have a chance to accept Islam, and they have a chance to enter paradise. That's how we believe. That's the faith that we have. So, is COVID one of the signs of the Day of Judgment? It is, and that's according to one of my teachers, Sheikh Walid Basyoun. He said it's about how we react to it. In the midst of this COVID, did you find yourself getting closer to Allah? Or did you find yourself slump off? Many of us did. But did you say, you know what? No, I'm going to force myself. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to force myself to read the Quran. And you might say, well, why do you need to force yourself? Because that is what Islam is. Aslam. That you're submissive to Allah against what you want to do. Netflix and Prime and Hulu now, it's all over the place. You can sit back and watch for days on end. You have to say, no, I have to force myself to stop this.
What do they call that?
Binge.
Binge
watching.
watching,
There
right?
you go. You could
Binge
binge
didn't have a
watch.
bad term now,
Yeah.
too. But anyhow, Nonetheless, so you come back and you say, I'm going to force myself time out from this. I need to get back to the promise, right? So yes, how did we react to this particular sign?
Just one thing, like, this is a little bit off track.
Okay.
But,
It's okay.
are there like little specific things when they had these? You know how they have these? I don't know if it's stupid or not, but you know the black cat crossing in front of you,
Mhm.
or the shooting star.
Mhm.
Are there things like that in the hadith where they're like
Yeah.
specific little things that happens day to day
Mhm.
that we know are signs of specific things?
Yeah, and the answer to that is no, and specific to bad omens. And the Rasul even mentioned black cats in certain houses, and he mentioned the third thing in the hadith. It could have been snakes, but I forget. He said if there was such thing as bad omens, if there was, it would be in black cats, it would be in houses, and I think snakes. I don't remember the third one. But my point is he said if there were, meaning what? Underlying principle, there are not.
Yeah.
These are all things the Prophet said you've conjured up in your mind. That somebody said, oh, there's a black cat, and he sat there for 3 days, and he just sits there and looks at me. Oh, so now you're just, it's in your mind. It's in your mind. You watch too many spooky movies, and this spooked you, and this is in your mind. This is just, But as far as good things go, at the end of the day, you know the good things are by your actions. And never forget, it's not by your accomplishments, it's by your actions, because Allah teaches us in Surah Ali Imran, Surah Ali Imran, that we are the people of the process and not of the results. I want to make sure everybody understands that. We as Muslims are the people of the process. Just trust the process. The Rasul said, Islam started as something strange. It will revert to something strange, back until the Quran and Sunnah. And alhamdulillah, we're going to get back to it. He said, so glad tidings to the strangers. And if you think about it today, we mentioned this last week, right? You can have somebody who's naked and lewd, just out there, and for a political gesture, they want to say, and they're looked up and praised, and yeah, she did it for the right reason. She just, stripped in front of an entire crowd to prove her point. And yet, if a Muslimah walked with a thobe and niqab in the middle of a crowd, oh, she's oppressed. She doesn't know what's going on, and she doesn't have any rights. She's not living in the modern day. You see how we just immediately have shifted, and it's something strange. And this was something that Allah says is something so modest, something that Allah is pleased with, but she's looked at as something very strange. And even us to a certain extent, right? Alhamdulillah, we can kind of get away with our beards now because, it's now all of a sudden a trend.
It's in.
But that's a challenge also. It's a trick from shaitan that makes you think, it changes your intention that I'm doing it because it's in, yeah, it is, or I'm really still doing it for the sunnah. You see, he could get you to still do something, but then do it for the wrong reasons, right? So this is something that we have to be careful of.
Alhamdulillah, I think we have a number of lessons that we learned today in terms of recognizing the signs of Allah and making sure that when the signs is right in front of us that we do pay heed.
Absolutely.
And talking about COVID, I think a couple of announcements we want everyone to know for the masjid. Given the numbers are going up in New Jersey, especially in the Newark area, we're actually cutting back a little bit for the masjid. We are going to not have the tafsir session on Sunday morning for the next couple of weeks. So those of you who come to the masjid for tafsir, or those of you who listen in for tafsir on Sunday morning, Sheikh Dawud will not be coming to the masjid, so we're taking a little bit more precautions. We're also advising those of you who are elderly in age that you stay away from the masjid for a couple of weeks. Just pray at home. It's probably safer for you while things quiet down a little bit. So we're going to be cutting back, and I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep all of us safe. The other thing is, next week is Thanksgiving, so we won't have fireside chat. I think most of you will probably be around the fireside with your families anyway. So you'll use that opportunity to have good family time and build relationships, inshallah. And make sure that you stay safe. I think the advice is that you don't have large gatherings with lots of families and lots of traveling. I know we like to do our own thing sometimes, but we should try to follow the protocols and use the opportunity for bonding within our own family. So those are some of the announcements we have. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families. Assalamu alaikum and have a good evening.